know about Ashbury, but their headquarters is here, and they're of course a great ally of South Base, and performance work in the built environment. He also serves as the state coordinator for Citizens Climate Lobby, and works tirelessly in this area trying to advocate for policy. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that. I'm sure he biked here this morning, and he is a co-founder of the Atlanta Bicycle Campaign, now called Propel Atlanta. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Henry, who will be our host today.
Great. Thank you, James. And thanks all of you at this wonderful early hour.
Yeah.
That some of us are here who are usually not even awake. But I'm so glad to see anybody. Thank you, James, for the lovely introduction. And thank you, Patagonia, for a wonderful space for us to use. And there will be opportunities to buy things after we're done. There will be a staffer here who can help you select your outdoor gear so you can look like James. And I'm delighted to be here. SART has been wonderful. It's a connecting point for many people who are interested in sustainability, which my favorite definition, it means we're living more lightly on the earth. Not that we're perfect, but we're still better. What's amazing about SARTs is that I can still tell you stories of things I heard from speakers at SARTs 10 or 20 years ago. Things about water. For example, if every fifth house in Atlanta had a cistern, we could have enough water, rainwater captured to equal Lake Lanier. Yeah, I mean, just amazing. What else, of course, like many of us, I speak to people who I met at SARTs. SARTs introduces us to topics on sustainability, and it introduces us to each other. So in the best SART tradition, I'm going to ask you to put your, be careful because you don't want to be eating when the mic passes to you. But we're going to start and pass around the mic. And we're off. What's wonderful about Sustainable Atlanta Roundtables is sustainability is as big as all outdoors. There's literally dozens, hundreds of ways you could do things or be involved. But our theme for this year, for this month, sorry, next month was water, but this month is green tech, which is about the machines that help us live more lightly on the earth, that are reducing human impacts. I mean, of course, everybody alive has impacts. Hey, I'm breathing out carbon dioxide now. Don't tell anybody. But they probably already know. And so are you.
Plants.
Yeah, it's good for the plants and bad for excessive amounts in the atmosphere. But we all use technology to make our lives better. Some of us have bicycles technology. Some of us have cars as technology. Some of us have super duper shoes, which are a kind of technology. And the question is, how can we lighten our impact? And so we have speakers to cover that. But first, let me mention, we're trying something new at SART. Thanks to technology, you can, when you registered, sign up and be part of a networking group. And you can opt out too, but if you want to network and talk to the people who are around you after this is over, I say talk, I mean, email messages, etc. But if you want to network with each other, you have that option. So that's a very new thing for SART. But we're off to the races. Our speakers today are Cynthia Curry and Amelia Godfrey, and I'm going to introduce them both now so you don't have to listen to me later. Cynthia Curry is the Senior Director of Clean Tech and Smart Cities Ecosystems with the Metropolitan Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, which is also called the MAC or MAC, or the Chamber. And she's part of the Chamber's Economic Development team. So she is one of the people who helps to bring the clean tech firms to our cities and drives collaboration between business leaders. And this means she talks to a lot of people. She's also on a number of committee and task forces to make connections. So she's very up on what is being built in the area. As many of us know, our governor has jumped in with both feet onto the idea of we need batteries and electric cars and so on, but there's no climate problem. So it seems. And our second speaker this morning is Amelia Godfrey, who managed the Earthcraft Green Building Program, which was actually started 24 years ago in 1999 and has an amazing, it has certified over 50,000 homes and other buildings as being more likely. One of the things I've been saying lately is, you know, somebody's building, they tore down a house in my neighborhood and they're putting up a new one. I'm saying that new home right now is a commitment to buy X thousands of kilowatt hours from Georgia Power for the next 40 years. And if we can buy, you know, half of that or none of that, what a big improvement it is. So Earthcraft does have a zero energy or a zero ready program as well, but she can talk about that. But she likes to say she keeps her finger on the pulse of the market drivers and construction strategies. And that's very important because all of us, if you live in a home, raise your hand. Yeah, exactly. She has a wealth of technical and workforce development knowledge and experience in the construction of high performance single and multifamily residences. One final note before they start. Questions are a great way that we learn more. And so you will find cards and pens at your chair. And if you think of a question while they're speaking, you can jot it down, raise your hand. Benedict, our amazing intern, will pick it up from you. And that's the big thing. Okay, so without further ado, please welcome Senator Curry.
Good morning, everyone. So good to see everyone here on a Friday morning. Thank you for rising with the sun. Thanks to Southface for having us. I love the work that James and his team are doing in Atlanta to push sustainability forward. It's so important. So Henry mentioned it, that I'm with Metro Atlanta Chamber, and a lot of people don't really realize what we do. We call ourselves Not Your Grandfather's Chamber. So we are Chamber of Commerce for the entire 29 county area. So we work with the entire Metro Atlanta area. And my whole role is to bring jobs and investment in the clean tech space to Georgia. And then I also make sure that all the companies that are here are getting the support and the evangelism that they need to tell their story and tell the amazing things that they're doing. So I love hearing all the companies that are in the space. We just had your CEO speaking at an event I did last week. Michael's awesome, love Cherry Street Energy. So if you have, as you grow and if you have needs, we want to make sure, please reach out to me, and we want to make sure that we're helping your company get in touch with the people that they need to talk to, incentives that they need to make sure that we have the supports and programs as they grow. So reach out to me. I'd like to hear from a lot of you in the room about how we can make sure and support you. The Metro Atlanta Chamber's been around for about 165 years. We've been around a really, really long time. And our whole goal is to really make sure that Atlanta is a good, strong place for business. And Henry mentioned it, but yes, we are in a really beautiful time that we can finally say sustainability out loud, and people are smiling instead of running away. I've Trojan Forced the clean tech ecosystem under my smart cities umbrella for a long time. A lot of those smart cities kind of technologies are obviously built around clean tech, but it really is beautiful that we have such a bipartisan support for this ecosystem moving forward, and Georgia's pretty rare in that. So I'm very, very happy that that's the case. I have to have my notes, it's early. So I don't know how many of you know this, but Georgia is really, really making huge strides in the clean tech space. We are the #1 state of investment since the passing of the IRA bill. So we have had over $15 billion invested into Georgia in the clean tech ecosystem since the passing of the IRA. Oh, thank you, I forgot to talk about my slides. Yes, I have slides. Here, I'll move over. So this is a huge thing. So I have gone to smart cities conferences in Europe for years and years and years and sat green with envy listening to Europe and Asia pouring billions and billions of dollars into their sustainability and smart city space. And we've just never really had that in the States. It's all been very local. It's all been very public partnerships, public-private partnerships that are driving this work forward. So the passing of the IRA bill and all the other chip manufacturing bills, there's really 3 that are moving the ecosystem forward, but it's a huge, huge push for what the United States is needed, and it really is gonna give us a chance to catch up with China, to catch up with Asia, to catch up with Europe, all the things that they're doing. So #1 state in the whole US, 15 billion, we've created over 16,000 jobs. We're second to Kansas in that way. Kansas City is actually doing a lot of really cool stuff, if y'all wanna look at them. We have a wonderful built environment here. We have 3 kind of main ecosystems that are driving the Georgia development forward. And I think that we're focusing on them. I know Georgia Tech is focusing on them, but the areas are really electrification. So that is both in the built environment and in the transportation environment. So both built and EV space. We are the #3 ranked city in the entire United States for Energy Star certified LEED buildings, which is awesome. I'm sure you all know that we have 2 of the most cleanest, greenest sports arenas in the entire world. Both State Farm Arena and Mercedes-Benz Arena both received rewards for diverting 90% of their landfill for an entire year. Unheard of for sports arenas. So that's definitely something that we're proud of in Atlanta. Obviously, we have the EV ecosystem that we're driving forward. We are creating a really beautiful circular EV economy in Atlanta, and I should say Georgia. We are creating a whole kind of sustainability circle. So we have the EV manufacturers here, we have the battery manufacturers here, we have the chip manufacturers here. We have amazing companies like Ascend Elements that are working on innovation around battery recycling and reuse, which is a huge, huge piece of the puzzle that we need to solve. And then we have infrastructure kind of producers and people that are putting the infrastructure all across the United States for the EV. So to have that entire circular EV ecosystem is really driving a lot of the investment in Georgia. And it's just much more sustainable to have everyone all in one place. The supply chain is very challenging right now, and parts for the EV and parts for the electric batteries and things like that tend to be so heavy that it's good to have them all in kind of one place. So electrification, both in the EV space and the built environment. Another big thing that we're leaning into is hydrogen. Lots of work happening in the hydrogen. There's the Green Hydrogen Council that's been launched by Senator Ossoff and Commissioner Eccles that I'm on. And we are doing work to really dig in and see what are those opportunities around hydrogen. How do we use that? How do we make sure that we leverage that as an alternative fuel in our future? So we're looking at Georgia Power, Southern Company actually is a big player in that. So we're looking at what are those low-hanging fruit opportunities to really use hydrogen, and how do you even begin to use it? Because you can't truck hydrogen across anywhere because there won't be any left in the truck when you get to where you're going. So we're talking about using them at the port, things that like, forklifts, things like that, non-car transportation. So we're working on that with the Georgia Hydrogen Council. And then of course, Southern Company's doing a lot of work around that as well. And then another big focus in the Atlanta area, of course, is solar, which sounds like a lot of y'all in this room have probably been around the solar space since, the 2002/9/R. So again, back to the IRA bill, I think we're finally at a time that solar can take off. And we're doing so much great work around solar. There's a lot of wonderful, wonderful, wonderful solar companies in Atlanta that we're working with, and we're seeing a lot of great partnerships. Cherry Street, for instance, partnered with the Porsche Experience Center to fuel up all of their driving kind of rack. I think they're doing their second driving test, fueling that by solar. The point being that we are trying to perpetuate these partnerships in Atlanta with bigger companies and startup companies, and that's another one of my roles is as these clean tech companies grow, who do you need to meet, what kind of partners would you like? That's kind of another thing that I do is help facilitate those partnerships and get those things going. All right, we were ranked number 5 smartest city in the US because of our rate of charging infrastructure, our IoT. Atlanta's always been very advanced in the IoT space, and then green certified buildings. So those are just a little bit of kind of text about Atlanta. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so 28,000 jobs have been created in Atlanta since the past couple of years in the EV space. And then I talked a little bit about the circular EV economy boasting over 21 billion. So there was referenced a little bit about Governor Kemp, but I will go back to, we look at it as the jobs of the future, and I think that's really the beautiful way to go forward, and it really allows everyone the freedom and the excitement to really get behind this technology. This is going to be the future of what our children do. What my son actually just got a job at EnviroSpark as an electronic apprentice. So excited for him. And I feel like we need to bring those trade jobs back into vogue. I think that's something that definitely is needed. The workforce development in Atlanta, we're doing a lot of work around workforce development. I've got another slide on it later, but we need the workforce to build all these clean tech jobs that are coming. And the beauty thing about them is they are all ranges. We have a real diversity of jobs within those clean tech ecosystems. Everything from engineers, electronic engineers, to data scientists, all the way to the trade installations and electricians. So I think that's one of the greatest things about the clean tech is it really offers a lot of variety for our future kind of employment and our future people. So I love that about it. So we can go to the next slide. All right, this is a little bit about the education and workforce that we were talking about. So when you're creating 16,000 jobs, where are you going to get those people? So Georgia has put a lot of effort into making sure that we're developing the workforce that is needed for these. So these are just some of the things that are going on. There's a lot more, but Georgia Tech is amazing, of course. Thank you for the Georgia Tech people for being here. I work very closly with Tim Lewin. The Strategic Energy Institute has over 1,000 people that are studying energy in Atlanta, and the RCE SDG, I've got my little SDG, thank you for that. The U.S. needs to figure out what the SDG goals are because they're huge. They have it all laid out for us, all the things that we need to do. So I appreciate your work doing that. So Georgia Tech has an amazing kind of ecosystem to develop this workforce. They have a program called Sustainability X. Basically, that's working with anyone within the Georgia Tech ecosystem. It can be a student, it can be a faculty member, or even a spouse. That has an idea about a sustainability business, but they don't know where to get started. So kind of back of the napkin phase. This group will help them figure out a business plan, figure out a business model, and then help them launch that. So the Serve, Learn, Sustain School holds the, sorry, I don't know what I'm going. There we go. Holds the Georgia Smart program. Deborah Lamb runs that, and she also runs the Partnership for Inclusive Innovation. So they're doing things like taking smart cities and clean tech technologies out to the rural areas of Georgia. They have over 35 programs in place right now all across rural Georgia. And the whole point was that smart cities and clean tech technology is not just for cities. We really need to make sure and give it to the everyman because everyone deserves to be sustainable and clean, and equity is at the top of our priority. So Georgia Tech is doing wonderful things in that way. The Georgia Department of Education launched a workforce program we're launching in the K through 12. So they're going to launch a whole e-mobility, e-transportation curriculum within the schools, so that as the students go through, they know these type of jobs exist. Kind of what I was saying before about going back to making sure that kids know that a trade skill is an option and a really cool thing that they could do. So we're really excited about that. The Atlanta University Center, which I'm sure everyone knows, is the whole group of HBCUs. They are doing a lot of work around making sure that we're diversifying this ecosystem. I think that's something that is really, really important. Of course, going back to the equity piece, we want to make sure that these technologies and that these advantages are really spread to everyone, not just the chosen few. So the University Center is partnering with Rice. I'm sure all of y'all know them. Jay Bailey is one of the greatest people on the whole planet, leading Rice and doing really, really great things. So they've partnered together to push that forward. And then they've given a DOE fellowship program grant that they're working on as well. Don't have it updated on here, but Southern Company just donated $5 million to the University of Georgia to help push their e-curriculum forward as well. So University of Georgia, they, first of all their buses are electric and beautiful and gorgeous. And then they will be launching an entire e-mobility curriculum at Georgia UGA. So those are just some of the things that are happening in the education and workforce space. So here's a little bit of example of just some of the ecosystems, some of the people that are in the ecosystem that we are welcoming and working with every single day. I do a lot of work trying to get this community together and get people talking to one another. I think one of the best things we could do for the region is to make sure and form partnerships within the region with one another. I think that is really the way forward. And so if y'all want to reach out to me, I'll give some cards. They can share my contact information. I have events probably 2 or 3 times a year where I'm getting the clean tech ecosystem together. So we would love for all of y'all to join us. And the point really is to kind of gather and make sure that we're all talking and on the same page. And making sure, again, that we're working together to form partnerships if we need to. I want to talk a little bit more about, can you go back? I'm sorry, I'm gonna just put some examples. So Q cells, this is a little bit back to solar. Obviously Cherry Street Energy is shining star of solar, but Q cells recently, I'll just highlight a couple of things that are happening with these companies, made the largest solar investment in the whole country ever in Georgia. So they are building a new factory out in Dalton, and they're actually reusing all the old carpet. They're doing a lot of upskilling with the old carpet workforce and teaching them how to be solar installers. Anyway, they're going to be producing the solar wafers, and I'm sure y'all know about this, but the way to get the funding for the IRA is that the products have to be made in the United States, which is beautiful. So there are no solar wafers made anywhere in the US right now. So Q-Cells will be doing that in Georgia, which means that all that money, that those incentives or funding will be coming through Georgia. Once the production is up and running, they will be producing 30% of the entire world's solar equipment. So, I mean, this is all happening in Georgia, which is way, way, way cool. I'm sure y'all know the whole Rivian story, and they really joined the kind of SK battery. I talked about the EV ecosystem. That's Rivian, that's SK battery. Ascend Elements is the cool company that I was talking about that does the recycling. Hyundai and SK Battery just did a joint event. They're going to start a whole battery production facility out in the ecosystem. Ford just opened an innovation center here. They are doing a really cool project that will be announced in September. They are launching the City One Challenge, looking for mobility solutions for the underserved environment. So they're going to do a call for startups, looking for 100 to 200 startups that have clean tech mobility solutions that will help the underserved. So keep your eye open for that. Board's doing a lot of work. Of course, Cox is one of our, OG sustainability. We love, love, love Cox. I think there was a Cox person here. Thank you for everything that you do. Watch is a kind of startup solar company. CoTool is a really cool company that helps companies build. For the architects in the room, they help you identify the right tools and the right kind of resources and materials to build sustainability and to where to find them and how to kind of streamline them into your plans. Fryer is a really cool battery manufacturer that just moved here. And then Heliox is also on the infrastructure side. They do a lot of the bilateral charging. So kind of back to the house, giving the car or energy from your car back to your house. So just a little Permeus, I'm sure y'all have all heard of them. They're going to be a next unicorn doing a lot of work around kind of alternative energy. And then Honeywell, I mean, people don't think about Honeywell. They have over 1,000 people working in Atlanta, and they are, their building technology group is based here, and they do so much work around helping make buildings more sustainable, which I'm sure everyone in this room knows is such a huge contributor to the carbon footprint. So they're doing really, really great work. So that's just a little bit of an example of what's happening. And of course, Georgia Power. Let's talk about that. So Georgia Power gets a bad rap. They're amazing. Georgia is one of the only states that has a real plethora of energy sources. So Georgia Power, of course, has traditional power that they offer, but they're also working on the hydrogen project, like I said. They have a nuclear plant. Plant Vogel just opened the third one, and that is a really long-term clean energy plan. And there will be one more plant that opens for that. So it's unusual as companies come to Atlanta and they really look for long-term plans. They want to make sure that they have the option of non-traditional energy sources. They need to make sure that they have the option of going clean down the road. And if your power provider doesn't have those options in their foundation, you can't get it. So Georgia is very, very well served, and Georgia Power and Southern Company are really ahead of the game with making sure that we are armed with all the different energy sources and that we are looking towards the future. So just want to give a shout out to them. Next slide. And then this is just, I always say that collaboration is Atlanta's superpower. Southface is one of our best partners, but really the beauty of what we do in Atlanta is that we all work together and we all work towards a common goal, and that's, again, pretty rare. One of our biggest competitors, in my world, other cities are competitors, other states are competitors. We want you to come here, not California. California is obviously leading this space a lot because the money has gone in through the government, like we talked about, but they're not as collaborative as we are. They don't work together like we do. They don't really all join forces like they do in Georgia. So that really is one of our very best things. So this is really just a small representation of all the amazing partners that we have in Georgia. And I can already tell by listening to this room that I need to add to this list because I think a lot of y'all would be on there. So again, my whole goal is to get everyone to work together, talk to one another, create partnerships with one another. Rising tides raise all the ship at Georgia. So I go back to collaboration is Atlanta's superpower, and we love working with Southface, and we love all the work that's happening in the region. And I'm just really excited and grateful every single day that I get to do this purpose-driven work and that I get to really help this ecosystem move forward. So please reach out to me if you need anything. Also, we like to talk about all the amazing things that are happening in the city. So if you have things, announcements that you're doing, reach out to me so that we can help promote it and help push it forward. So thank y'all so much for being here and for all the help you do to build the clean tech ecosystem in Atlanta.
Thank you.
Cynthia, I neglected a couple of things to say to begin with. Although you are unlikely to get a lot of calls in the next hour, if you would please silence your phones. Second important thing, the bathrooms are behind the screen. So you can sneak around past the food and no one will know, except the people who watch you. And the third thing, what Cynthia reminded me of very strongly is the triple bottom line that you may hear of from the U.S. Green Building Council and others. The idea that we are creating things that are better for people, better for profits, and better for the planet. And that's very important. So please write down any questions you have. If you just hold up the card, Benedict will come find you and gather your questions in. Please, because this is how I learned much more from the questions than from what they say, however wonderfully they say it, because I can think of things they didn't think of. We're all unique, each one of us. Just so, I mean, yes, you are a unique individual, just like everyone else. But it gives you a perspective, and I learn more from the questions, especially if I'm the speaker. So, and while you're writing down questions and so on, here's Amelia Godfrey, going to talk about green tech and earthcraft.
Thank you. I'm gonna stand on this side so it's easier eye contact over there. Okay. Hi. So again, my name is Amelia Godfrey. I work with Southface and I manage our earthcraft program. And I'm taking a slightly different approach to my presentation because I wanted to focus on the kinds of questions that we get a lot or all the time within our program, which is like, A, how do I explain all of this to my clients? And also, like, what can I actually do in my own home? So, like, concretely, what are practices that I could incorporate into my lifestyle, or what are products that are available that can help me achieve these goals? So I started with just what is green technology. I feel like this is one of those very new terms that's going to evolve over the years, just like green building did, where it started as being environmentalism and then it has morphed into health and comfort and performance. So green tech right now, at least according to Google, is just focusing on reducing carbon impact, and I think that's a great place to start. I immediately thought about other things like, what about indoor air quality and what about comfort? Because a lot of these things are not going to work if people aren't feeling the direct impact in their own homes. So also wanted to just kind of get a look and a starting place for all of us on what are we using energy for in Georgia right now. If you're familiar with the Energy Information Administration, their residential energy consumption survey, REX, they've just released new data from 2020. And here's the breakdown. The two biggest users, I don't know if you'll be surprised or not, are space heating and this broad group called other. And other is all of the stuff that we have in our houses. We've got a lot of TVs. They break down the other into sort of more concrete data. We have a lot of TVs in our, particularly in Georgia. We've got cooking equipment, we've got clothes washing, dishwashing, computer monitors, amazing Wi-Fi, things to work from home. And so just looking at, if we're gonna bring new tech into our houses, like making sure that it's actually helping us reduce consumption. Because just having it to have it isn't actually gonna help us much. And that's just something to kind of help level set ourselves when we start looking into all the different things that are available. And I also just wanted to talk about how we use fuels in Georgia in particular. And so we're moving towards all electric, but we still have a lot of natural gas. And natural gas, from my own experience in working through earthcraft, people love gas cooking, and they still love furnaces. And I see a lot of houses that have multiple systems, and one of those systems is still a furnace. So they may have a heat pump, but then they always have at least one furnace. We're still figuring out what electrification can mean for us in our homes. So I think we talk about it very broadly, but then we go home to our very nice gas ranges. I am one of those people, like my household, my husband has been very resistant to changing over. So I recognize that it's a process, it's a conversation. But this is just sort of where we're starting at, if we're looking at like how can we move forward today and tomorrow, is just continuing to have that conversation about gas. And I was told to talk about electrification, and so I just wanted to make the case of electrification from just a practicality standpoint, not about decarbonization or just removing controlling our carbon impact, but just if we go electric, that means we get gas out of our houses. And these are just, it's good for health, it's good for managing construction costs because of the infrastructure associated with raising gas lines. It's also good from an equity perspective. Who here pays attention to their natural gas bill? Yes, so you know how much you pay in fees. For those of you that haven't looked at your gas bill recently, I'll give you an example. My gas bill last month was $36. Who wants to guess how much of that was in actual consumption? $2. $2. Wow. The rest of that was in fees. It's pass-through fees to Atlanta Gas Light Company. It's fees to the actual provider that I use. And if we get rid of gas from houses, we get rid of fees. And that's just good from managing utility costs for consumers, particularly in households. Because we're not going to be getting rid of electricity anytime soon, but we can get rid of natural gas. And that's something that I don't think is talked about as much when we're going through the options for development or for renovation of existing houses. All right, and so just now I'm going to kind of get into sort of I was asked to kind of talk about what are different methods that we can use to reduce energy, water, and also waste in households. And so I'm just going to go through some recommendations or things that I'm seeing in the field. And also I was asked to talk about things that I think people will get excited about. And so first off, I'm seeing a lot of advertising for lighting controls and lighting sensors that are integrated in with Alexa and Google, and they're hands-free and it's all awesome. And I think that that's something that, especially when you're looking at accessibility, that's really, really nice. But we also have to make sure that if you're going to put that into a house, you're actually using it, and you're not just having it on all the time. You're not taking advantage of it to actually turn the lights off when you're not home. The thing that I get really excited about is induction cooking. If you haven't explored that yet, I urge you to. There's a small rebate that's being promised through the Inflation Reduction Act for induction cooking. But from just a user experience, it's safer, it works better, and it's no carbon monoxide. It's just from getting gas out of houses, this is the way to go. It's not your, old apartment's electric cooking, like what you might be thinking it is. It's very high tech. From a perspective with families with young children, much safer with kids with households. And it's also for people that care a lot about keeping appliances clean, much easier to clean because you've got just easier surfaces to work with. So I don't have much. I try to put pictures up of things that I'm excited about. This doesn't have a picture. Induction cooking is, if you haven't explored it, please explore it. It's going to be transferring homes to electric, and you have to rewire for that. But once you're there, please look into moving over to induction. And the other thing that we are sort of trying to get more people excited about are these things called heat pump water heaters. And there's also financing available or rebates and tax credits available through the Inflation Reduction Act for these. This is just, again, not your electric resistance water heater. This is actually just like a heat pump for a living system. This is moving heat from the outdoors into the water. So it's a much more efficient way to heat water. And from looking at big users of electricity in the house, an electric water heater is very inefficient. A heat pump water heater, much better at actually controlling your utility costs while also still being able to provide hot water to you. And they are available across the board now. It used to be pretty hard to find them. Now you can find them at Lowe's, Home Depot, all the major water heater manufacturers are making them. So it's much more accessible for the average homeowner than it used to be. And then newer is this sort of point of use electric tankless, where you're getting rid of the tank altogether. And you're just putting tanks where you need to use hot water. And that's gonna be something that, it's still very, very new. I'm not seeing it a lot in American households. You see it more in Europe. But if you have a household that's not using a lot of hot water, this is something to explore, just because not keeping a giant tank full of hot water is much more efficient for water use. And then I put in slides here of just what my staff, my coworkers and I are using, because people always ask us, what do you guys use? And we have to be product agnostic. And so today I am not being product agnostic. So I just did a poll of my colleagues, and if you want to know things that we have actually put into our houses, the first one is DC motor ceiling fans. Really exciting. But these are, if you're just looking at keeping rooms cool without running your air conditioning, your average ceiling fan is pretty inefficient. The Energy Star has Energy Star labeled ceiling fans, which are oddly sometimes hard to find. So if you just look for DC motor ceiling fans, that's also an Energy Star ceiling fan, just with better labeling on it. And they're using basically the energy of a light bulb. So they have reversing features on them as well. And as long as you turn it off when you're not home, it'll save you energy. And then if you really want to know what we use, Hampton Bay makes a lot of them. It's all about aesthetic, but Hampton Bay is all over Home Depot right now. So if you want to know what's in my house, it's Hampton Bay. And then heat pumps for air conditioning. This is probably for everyone in this room like a no-brainer, but I still run into a lot of questions of, do heat pumps work? Yes. So when you're moving over, and if you're renovating your house or you're building new, heat pumps are all over the multifamily world in Georgia right now. Pretty much all multifamily is all electric. So it's working there, and it's just getting that sort of moving away from using natural gas in our homes and actually implementing heat pumps. We now have very efficient heat pump equipment that's available on the market. You can do ductless systems, which are great. And I don't have information on that because I only have 20 minutes to talk today. And there's also ducted mini splits. So the offerings available on the market in the heat pump world are phenomenal. And then also programmable thermostats. Talked about Honeywell. They make nice programmable thermostats. There's also Ecobee, which comes with occupancy sensors. So back to the previous slide was about sensors. One of my colleagues really loves their Ecobee because it integrates with their whole house. So that helps them a lot. Moving on to water. Water data, this is from the survey done in 2016 that EPA still relies on. If you just sort of look at how are we using water in our homes nationally, so you couldn't find data specific to Georgia, but it's still a lot of indoor use. And outside is really just how water intensive is your landscaping. I'm not going to talk about outdoor water use, I'm going to only talk about indoor water use today. So just toilets and showers are the big ones for how can we kind of control what we're using. And here's some ones, some things I'll talk about that I don't see as commonly that I think people would get really jazzed about, is automatic leak detection systems, which can actually help prevent building damage in the event of a leak. And Moen makes one. There's also Streamlabs. Those are two actual specific products that we've vetted, that we've seen in Earthcraft houses, and also one of my colleagues has a Streamlabs. Streamlabs makes one where it actually will only monitor. It'll just tell you, hey, something looks off. And then Moen makes one where it'll say, hey, something looks off, and I just turned off your water. And so you can integrate. I think some insurance companies may give you like a perk. I was not so lucky with mine, but keep asking about it. So that's one that we don't see talked a lot about, talked about a lot, but could be very, very exciting to certain households. And then I still struggle with getting people to use WaterSense. I'm not quite sure why. It is a very good program. And WaterSense labeled fixtures are actually going to reduce water flow while maintaining performance. and just making sure that you are asking for water sense labeled low flow fixtures, not just low flow fixtures, water sense labeled low flow fixtures that are available at every major store, every major manufacturer of water systems makes these, but you still have to specify it. And that's just still been a struggle after all these years. And then recycled water in homes, where you're taking your wastewater and then reusing it for non-potable uses. We at Southface, we have a grader system at our own office, so it works, if you wanna know someone that's using them. And then there's also another one called HydroLoop, but this can be if you're sort of really going and exploring plumbing and reducing water consumption indoors. This is a system that, both of these systems actually are code compliant. So that's been sort of a barrier that people have about, can I actually get through a code inspection like this? Yes, you can. It just is going to require additional communication, but they've done the work for you there. And then, if you want to know what we use in our own homes, Niagara is a manufacturer of toilets and shower heads and faucets, and they make very, very, very efficient toilets. And they use a patented suction to expel the waste, so it's not like your average toilet. And they are affordable, so you can actually find these at Lowe's and Home Depot. You can go through Niagara as well, but it's not going to be some extremely expensive toilet that's unattainable. And it achieves 0.8 gallons per flush, and it actually flushes, which I know is usually what people are concerned about. We have one, they showed us at our office a year or two ago, and it was impressive. Its ability to function. And the other one, Niagara also makes a dual flow shower head. Because we run into resistance about shower heads a lot. Low flow shower heads, is it going to work? I don't think it's going to work. I get that all the time. This one, you can switch between 1.5 and 1 gallon per minute for those households that are still having a conversation about I get it. One of our colleagues had to do this in their own house for that reason. And so that just sort of helps. There are manufacturers that have figured out a way to help ease into low flow fixtures. Because we're still running into households where they just take the shower head off and just put on the highest flow thing they can find because people are worried about performance. If you go with water sense rated ones, you will still have that water pressure that you need for the feeling of that you expect out of the shower, and so we can low flow. And then just product not agnostic here. Niagara makes really nice stuff. And then also, this is called a demand controls hot water circulation pump. If you've got houses where the water heater's down in your basement or it's in your garage and you've got more than 20 feet of plumbing between your water heater and your bathroom, it really helps to have a recirculation pump that you can activate to get water to that fixture so you're not just turning on the faucet and waiting for 2 minutes. And so this is one, it requires an electrician and a plumber, so it's not necessarily a DIY. It's really good for new construction. If you're working with traditional plumbing lines or traditional plumbing layouts. I did it in my house personally because I had a renovation, so I couldn't move my water heater. But the great thing with these is that you can just have an activated switch in your bathroom, so you can push the button and then you can get your hot water within 30 seconds or less. There are ones that are motion activated as well. You don't want one that's just operating on a timer, because then you might have water circulating when you don't need it. So you want it to be user activated when they actually need hot water. But Demand Controls makes some nice products that we use in our office and me personally. And then with waste management, this one I will admit was a little bit difficult for me to just come up with things to talk about. If you're not already using Charm, they're a great resource in this city for managing your recycling. They're slowly rolling out pickup services for zip codes in Atlanta. I find them to be an excellent education resource on how to actually manage your recycling, clean it, process it. They actually make sure it's recycled. They have one in Athens. I've heard a rumor that they're opening up one closer to the city of Decatur. So I think I'm not alone in loving charm. And then they take compost too. If you haven't been there, they're over in Grant Park. And then there's also subscription services. If you live in an area where it's not so easy to get to a place like Charm, that will come pick up some recycling, not all recycling. And then there's composting, Compost Now, which is local, and then the wide variety of home composting systems that are available, either DIY or purchased. So speaking of that, here's Lomi, which my colleague Sam has, if you want to talk to Sam about Lomi, where this is a countertop composter. So if you live in a small place, apartments, this is good for apartments where you don't have the space for backyard composting, but you still want to be able to compost. It will do it all in that one product. And that's very, very cool. It uses electricity though, so it's not necessarily reducing your electricity consumption, but it does help with waste. And then I threw in pay as you throw. If you live in Decatur, you're well aware of how they're managing waste in that city. There's also just taking that concept and implementing it to your own life. So you're actually keeping track of how much waste you're producing, how can you lower it, and just holding yourself personally accountable for waste, which you can just take another model and just implement it in your own house. And then I wanted to get into indoor air quality because I think it's something that's really important for just lifestyle. If we're not healthy in our homes, then that's going to have rebound effects for productivity and healthcare needs and just overall happiness. And there are a lot of sensors that do a lot of things and collect a lot of information and can tell us, sort of give us a guide on how our houses are working for us or not. And these are the major ones that I'm monitoring for. You can monitor for these or not. It's really just a matter of what data do you want to collect that can actually help you change things in your own home. And that's something that's really, really important. I think a lot of what we do, at least within Southface, is we're monitoring humidity and particulate matter, but you can go much deeper into other parts of houses, and there's sensors all over the place available on the market today. And really, beyond sensors, it's like, what can I do right now? And that's better filtration. And Henry could talk much more eloquently about filters than I can. I'm gonna just give you really high level here. But if you're buying a new HVAC system today, or if you go home and you're wondering about this, you probably have a 1-inch filter in your HVAC system, because that's what comes standard. That's called a MERV 8. The best ones are gonna be 5 inches, so super, super thick, and a MERV 13. The higher the MERV rating, the better particulate capture of that filter. And filters they're tricky within HVAC systems because you can't just go home and just put a giant filter on your existing system. So no one leave here saying that I told you to do that. Systems need to be designed for higher MERV rated filters, but that doesn't mean that they can't be. So you can still talk to a qualified contractor for an existing system to have a better filter put on, and the impact that will have both on the performance of your system is going to capture dust and dog hair and everything else that's already in your house, but it also has a better impact on your quality. And then when you're buying a new a new ducted HVAC system, often you have to tell them, I want a better filter. And you don't want to, they sell these, you don't do this, they sell 1-inch filters that are MERV 13, and all it's going to do is just choke the air out of your system. So when you buy a new system, you have to specify, I want a 5-inch sealed HVAC cover that can hold a MERV 13 filter. And when you integrate that into your system, you're going to, again, have better performance and better indoor air quality as a result. And then there's the world of DIY. And this is from a group called RAUCUS, which stands for Reducing Outdoor Contaminants in Indoor Spaces. They're out of Pittsburgh, and they do a lot. Have you ever heard of Rockus? They're doing a lot of research on indoor air quality in Pittsburgh, which is not known for their outdoor air quality. And they've got a lot of resources available on air cleaners and air purifiers that are available on the market. And they also have this DIY system that we have in our own office. One of my colleagues went for it, and it works really well. Not necessarily the cheapest option. You could buy manufactured ones, but if you want to actually play around with this, this is a homemade air cleaner out of MERV 13 filters in a box here. And it's legitimate, it actually will work. And Rockus has other very good resources around filtration and indoor air quality. If you're wanting to go down that route of not just, I put in sensors in my house, but now what do I do about it? This is a good resource to use. And then, just high level, because there's so much more that we could go into. When I asked my colleagues, and including myself, like, what's something you've done in your house to reduce energy? Across the board, every single one of us said, I air seal my house. And that's not something that's easy to put into a slide, because it's very complicated, but home performance of existing homes, actually, you can go down the route of doing DIY, there's resources available for that, or hiring a qualified professional to measure how air leaky a house is, and you can actually do something about it to reduce air leakage. That's gonna help you save energy, it helps control indoor humidity, it helps control pests that get into your house, so it has this trickle-down impact for home performance in general. But I think the most important thing that I ask myself and then I ask the people is just, what is your goal here? Are you trying to save money? Are you trying to lower your own personal carbon impact? Or are you trying to have this larger, broader impact on climate change? Or all of the above? And then work through, either have someone come and do an assessment on your house. You can do a very, very quick, just personal 12-month assessment to identify what your baseline consumption is, which is just looking at your own utility bills. And then recognizing that this takes time, and so what kind of things do you need to do to integrate that in over a long period? It's not going to be done in 1 weekend, and that's okay. A lot of this electrification for existing homes, that means you're probably going to have to rewire your house, and that's not as fun, but it's necessary. And there's money available today through the Inflation Reduction Act for tax credits for that very purpose. So it's just a matter of, do I need to update my electrical wiring in my panel so that I can now go all electric or have EVs in my house, and then kind of move through that process for existing homes. And then for new construction, shameless plug, we have this program called Earthcraft that's done all of this thinking about these things for you all. And Earthcraft's not alone. There's Energy Star, there's LEED, but if we're keeping it local, there's Earthcraft, and like Henry alluded to, we've got a standard for just baseline, what's a high performance home, like a pretty good home that still uses gas, but we're getting there. And then if you want to go all electric, or you want to go really into how can I reduce my carbon, we have pathways within the program for that. And we have professionals within Earthcraft that can work with you on cost-effective products that are available. And then I have, because I thought this was going to be, I have stuff in here for solar, knowing that there were going to be people in the room that do solar, so I am not going to spend any more time on that than just say, you can get solar, and then talk to the people in this room for that. There's some solarized campaigns if you live in specific counties. There's also tax credits available. And then, again, if I haven't mentioned tax credits enough, there's tax credits for holistic home performance through the homes tax credit. And this is going to be, again, hiring that qualified professional to do an evaluation, to do an energy model, and then to work with you. What are the most impactful things that you can do now versus phase in for later? And then finally, everything that I have talked about today, I included as links in this, so that if you get this PowerPoint and you're wondering what all was she talking about, you don't need to take a picture of it, you can just ask us and we'll send it to you.
Okay.
Amelia, again, write your questions down, hold them up like Bob is, and Benedict will pick them up. Yes, mic works. And I'm going to invite Amelia and Cynthia to take these chairs to the front and share the microphone between them. And Benedict will bring me questions. But the first question I want to ask both of them, what is something in green tech that you think almost everyone would love, if only they try it? So.
I'll start. I just jumped into the EV train. So I just got my first EV. I know I'm very late to the party on this. I'm a little bit of a Subaru loyalist, so I was waiting around for the Subaru to come out with an EV. I just got the Subaru Solterra a couple of months ago. Wow. I mean, it's changed my life. I do a lot of work in my car, take a lot of meetings in my car. I do a lot of sitting in my car and looking at email and coming places like this 30 minutes early to make sure I know where it is and don't get lost finding it. And so now the guilt of sitting in my car and listening to music and waiting on things to happen is completely gone. The performance of the car is absolutely incredible. It's crazy fun to drive. It's a little bit dangerous because it goes so fast. I'm not used to that at all. But I've really been thrilled with the whole concept of it. I haven't gone to a gas station at all. I've gone, this is a little embarrassing, over 3,000 miles already in the 2 months, and I've spent like $50 on my car the whole time. So I'm also a use case for no home charging. I have an older home, so I have a lot of work to do on it. But I've been really beautifully surprised at the availability of charging infrastructure across Atlanta. We have a charger at our office. There's free charging at ATV. I live in Decatur. We have charging there. Agnes Scott has a fast charger. The opportunities to do it are just endless. So I really love being able to dive into the EV world. I love this Solterra, and I'm really happy to kind of enter that phase of my life. So I recommend everyone get an EV if possible, or a hybrid. Y'all probably already have it, but I am new to the party and loving my EV life these days. I've taken 4 road trips, which is, from the range of 300 to 600 miles. So I use all the PlugShare apps to plan my trip and make sure that I'm getting to the right place at the right time. And it just hasn't been an issue. So I say everyone go for the EV. They're super fun to drive, but watch your speed because they are fast.
Not to restate what I've already stated, but induction cooking. By and large, that's the newest one for residential market that people I find are still on the fence about, that they need to explore more. There's a Wolf and Sub-Zero. They've got a showroom up in Buckhead, and that's very high end, but they will actually demonstrate induction cooking with their particular products to give you an idea about how fast it is, how effective it is, and also how safe it is. And then you can go and explore non-Wolf and Sub-Zero products if you need to operate on a more affordable budget. And that one is, I've heard anecdotally through the building construction professionals, especially in single family, that people think that electric ranges are going to lower the value of the house and are going to impact sale value because of this perception of gas is so important. And that needs to be changed, both in sort of my world of just helping educate professionals, but also on the consumer side of saying, we want induction cooking, and we want houses that have induction cooking. And that can start with just exploring it in your own homes. They sell little portable ones. If you want to just try it out, we have one at our office. If you want to visit us and see water boil in 30 seconds. And then also just, they're an investment. Most people aren't planning to change out their cooktops anytime soon. But from just a lifestyle perspective, I'm very excited about induction.
And I want to add to that because I got an induction plug-in courtesy of my kids at Christmas. And I plug it in, it boils water faster than the microwave does. It's very clean, doesn't create particulate matter, or carbon monoxide or other dangerous things. So, and I just plug it in and let it go. The one thing we haven't mentioned is it will take a magnetic pan. You cannot use aluminum or some stainless steels. So your cast iron cookware though, will do great. So questions from the group. Please provide info on when and how the IR rebates will be available in Georgia.
Oh, thank you for asking that. The tax credits are available now, and you can start working towards that today. The rebates are going to be, they're going to flow through the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, and they haven't figured that out yet. Because it's income and zip-com based, so being able to verify those two pieces of information while someone's purchasing appliances is going to be hard. We spoke to GFA a couple weeks ago. They are working on it, but it's not going to be anytime soon. GFA's here. GFA's here. Yeah, I forgot. GFA's here. I don't want to misspeak to you. You're working on it. And I know it's something that people are anxious for, but it's going to be hard. So patience.
But one more thing important about tax credits. Churches and nonprofits now qualify for tax credits for their solar systems. So if you're involved in a church or a nonprofit that owns a building, which is where I first met Cynthia, was a program that gave grants to help nonprofits green their buildings up. It's a rare opportunity because my church does not normally talk to the IRS at all. But this gives them a chance to do so. And IRS will write us a check. We put in solar already. It was activated in January, and IRS should write us a check for 30% of the cost of the system. It may take a year before we get it, but that's not.
I can add a little bit to
Yeah,
that.
please do.
Just a couple of things. So with the IRA bill is still putting out a lot of their stipulations on how those rebates happen. So that's why a lot of these stuff is not settled. The good news is it's out there, but I'll just comment on the EV rebate. So recently they did pass a rebate of $3,500 for a used EV, which is brand new, which is super, super, super cool. And the $7,500 rebate is just for U.S. manufactured EVs, which is challenging right now. However, there is a loophole that I used that if you lease a car, a lot of times the leasing provider, the financial provider of the lease is giving you the $7,500 rebate. So I got a $7,500 rebate on my Subaru by leasing it. That is something you have to ask for. I'm using Chase. I don't know if any of the other financial organizations are doing it, but it was a huge, huge factor for me. And of course, I'm going to buy the car after, but why not take advantage of that $7,500 rebate? So just a plug for that's a little bit of a way around some of the things that are happening. And hopefully as the federal government finalizes a lot of the stipulations around the IRA bill, we'll know more. But that's a lot of the holdup right now.
Cynthia, a question for you. I'm surprised at how high Atlanta is rated given our sprawl and reliance on cars and lack of public transport.
Rating in what?
All the different ratings, number 3, number 5 in the country, despite our sprawl. Can you tell us a little more about that metric?
There's a lot of them up there, so they come from different places. But I think the really overall, like we're talking about the Energy Star, the number 3 Energy Star building. I'm sure all of y'all know this, but Atlanta was part of the Better Buildings Challenge for the past several years, which we blew away the goals there. We really overperformed in that kind of metric. And it just helps really everyone take a good look at what their buildings are doing. I don't know how many of y'all know Chandra Farley. She's the new CSO for City of Atlanta, Chief Sustainability Officer. She's still getting settled in after not even a year on the job, but she is going to re-engage in that Better Buildings Challenge, and the built infrastructure is high on her list. She's starting with buildings within the City of Atlanta, obviously, and then she'll move out from there. But things like that are, just making aware, and it goes back to really the collaboration piece. Programs like that help everybody get on the same page. As far as the number 5 ranking for number highest smart cities, that really goes down to the resources that are available in the Metro Atlanta region. We have, like I mentioned, really super strong EV infrastructure here. Atlanta is on the alternative fuel corridor, one of 35 states that has gotten money from the NETI program from the federal government to make sure that we are building up our infrastructure for EV charging. Part of that means that, I don't know if I'm gonna get this exactly right, but every 30 miles, you have to have an EV charger within 5 miles of the exit. In Georgia, that's a big ask, and companies like EnviroSpark and Helios and things like that are helping make sure. So again, it all really goes back to collaboration of these big efforts and how do all the different companies in Atlanta participate, but we need more people participating for sure. So we'll get higher up in those rankings, but I think Atlanta, Metro Atlanta and Georgia is a lot farther ahead of the game than a lot of people realized. I was in California recently, and we got 4 shout outs on stage about the innovation that's happening in the clean tech space here from non-Georgia speakers. So we're finally, people are finally realizing that we're doing things that matter here. So hopefully those rankings will go up, but it's all collaboration based.
Okay, thank you. And our third SART this fall will be on cleaning our transport and making it better.
Hugely important.
So for Amelia, our condo association wants to add tankless water heaters and induction cooktops as well as EV charging stations. But it will require a significant investment in electrical capacity. Are there any programs through the IRA or otherwise that can help to offset these costs? And the same issue they have with solar programs, which are not designed or apply to condos or apartments.
So yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act is the whole point of that financing is for electrification. I don't know how it works specifically within condos because it's applied to the individual, but updating your electrical wire and your panel for things like induction, heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, and EV is part of that. And so it's all wrapped into the 30% tax credit. It's available over the next 5 years. So what they allow is that if you're piecemealing it together, you can only do some this year, and then you're gonna do the rest next year, or the rest of the year after that. That's what those tax credits are designed for. And that's kind of where I was getting into when I was speaking earlier about this does take planning for a lot of houses that already have gas infrastructure. And so you can start with what sounds like this place is starting with is just getting that the electrical capacity up to being able to handle all of these things. Same thing with solar, where it's applied to rooftop solar for homes. And there's also a tax credit within that for battery as well, which talk to companies like Creative Solar and others that are working in that more specifically. So lean on the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits for exploring that starting this year. Or starting last year, but this year.
Yeah, this year. Okay, thank you. This commenter says, phenomenal presentations. I agree, reducing carbon and energy impact on the environment is very important. One of the major issues is accessibility and adoption. What are some of the things you all are doing to support low-income families who are renters or non-homeowners or who cannot now afford an EV, although they're getting cheaper and cheaper? Please provide information on how you are reaching low-income families.
Sure. Within Southface, we do a lot of work with the affordable housing tax credit programs. So those are providing affordable housing for individuals that meet those requirements. And part of the affordable tax credits in Georgia, it's called the Qualified Allocation Plan, otherwise known as the QAP. It requires green building certification programs. And so we work very hard to keep those in to the QAP so that affordable housing built in Georgia is achieving a high performance building standard. Earthcraft is one of them. We also, it's the major ones across the country. And mostly we push for electrification in those homes around, our biggest motivator is reducing that utility cost in those homes. There's also the health and safety aspect as well. And then we work with just Earthcraft in general. We are working with educating builders across the whole. Earthcraft is a program through both Southface and the Greater Atlanta Home Builders Association. So we do a lot of education with people that are going to go on to build Earthcraft, but also people that are professional builders in this state. And we're just working diligently to educate home builders and educate designers on best practices to achieve energy efficiency on the front end, so that you're not as worried about air leakage and ineffective insulation and ineffective systems in new construction homes, so that you can have more reliable utility bills just for homes in general in Georgia.
That's good. I mean, we support programs like this. I mean, the Metro Atlanta Chamber, we don't have any of our own programs, of course, but we support programs like this. We work closely with Mayor Dickens' administration. He's actually traveling with us to a Smart Cities conference this November to learn what kind of things can we do, how can we push the ecosystem forward. And I will say that there are a lot of programs. Back to Chandra, she's focusing a lot on making sure that equity is at the key kind of heart of what they're doing, and they're looking into really paying for a lot of these electrification programs for the underserved community. So we support all of that. Unfortunately, don't lead any of that, but any programs that any of y'all have to do that, please reach out. I will help you support them.
Great, thank you. And we're almost out of time, so our last question, I think all electric homes are scary with winter storms or other storms, as electric power is lost, and gas can be a lifesaver in those situations. So please respond.
Sure. First off, I want to say, when your power goes out in the winter, your furnace is still not going to work because the fan relies on electricity. So first and foremost, you're still not going to have heating. And then gas use in a power outage can actually be extremely dangerous. People rely on their gas ovens to heat their home, and they're just blasting themselves with carbon monoxide. And improper generator use as well is a cause of a lot of problems during power outages. I have had this own conversation in my own house when we lost power a couple months ago, and my husband, in a state of frustration, was like, well, what would happen if we were all electric? And I was like, we'd still be in this exact same situation. We would not have power right now. And the only way to address that is if you have rooftop solar on your home, and if you work long-term towards actually having renewables on site, which is part of that process, which electrification leads to more cost-effective solar.
Caveat that just because there's a misnomer, having solar on your house
If you're
only
not,
works if you have a battery for it,
that is also true.
because otherwise they'll cut it off.
So it's electrification can be a little bit nervous if you're thinking about what do I do in a power outage, and I would just say over the course of the next year, keep track of how many times you actually lose power, and then plan for that. There's other ways to handle home, like if you weatherize your home and make it more energy efficient from a perspective of you have air seal that you put in better insulation. It can handle extreme weather better. And so you won't have to worry about your house dropping down to very dangerous cold temperatures or very dangerous hot temperatures in the summer. So that's kind of where you start, is just a resiliency from the structure itself, and then being able to plan for how are you going to provide for water and food during those periods of power outage.
I'll just add a little bit on the innovation piece, maybe the future of this. I mentioned companies like Heliox, that if you have an electric car, you can, reverse that power and power your house. Also, there are really cool technologies coming out. I just met with a company yesterday, Moxian, that's helping power up a lot of the tour that's happening over at Eastlake. And they have, what do they call it? An electric power source, mobile electric power source. So it's basically a generator, but it's all electric. They are powering the entire hospitality tip there. So things like that are really coming on the market, and innovation's really catching up to help us do more and more interesting things to cross that bridge and make sure that we are still covered in the power loss. And we lose our power a lot in Decatur. I don't know how many people y'all live there. We lose it a lot. So I have a lot of candles. And we always joke that we're getting a little bit of the taste of what California experiences a lot with the kind of blackouts. So I'm thankful to be here.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's have a big round of applause for our speakers. for picking up the questions and serving, and Miesha, who is running the slides forward, and the other South Basin interns who got up here early, as well as James. Let's thank Patagonia
Yeah.
again for welcoming. Thank you, our wonderful audience who made time to attend this breakfast and support sustainability. We've got to pay attention to this now. So if you want to be involved, number one, join Southface. If you're not a member, all the members raise your hands. Yeah, see, you join, you'll be in good company. Come to some of their future events. The next month, SART will be on water on September 29th. It will not be here. And then we'll talk about transportation at the end of October. That also will be somewhere else. And Southface is having its visionary dinner on October 12th. On October 10th, yes. Thank you. I appreciate the correction. And then the winter solstice is a great party, December 7th. And James, would you like the mic?
I
to
would,
close
I
this out?
would.
Good. Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank you all for coming, our great friends at Cox, JLL, Georgia Tech, Georgia State, all of you for being here this morning. I'd also like to thank Henry, as I said, a Southfacer, for all the years of service that you've done and the work that you continue to do with the Citizens Climate Lobby. If you're driving home today or riding your bike home, go by Pond City Market and look at the mass timber building that's going up adjacent. I'd be remiss since we're here on the Beltline, an example of SART and innovation at Southface, the very first Beltline presentation ever to the public was hosted by Southface. So innovation, connection, the collaboration, we've been doing a good bit of work at Southface over the last year and a half plus around the Clean Tech Innovation Hub. So we're working with Andy, and we're going to actually get some office space.
Thank you for mentioning that.
So we're trying to be a connector, a convener. We need your help though. We need you to be a sponsor for Visionary Dinner. We need you to be with us for Visionary Dinner and these other events, and consider working with your organization to include us in presentations, to include us in your funding model for next year, and just get involved, get engaged, and thank you for being here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.